Alien. My God. It has been a week. I say that because I watched Romulus last week, but I also preceded that by rewatching Prometheus and Alien Covenant. And I have kind of a new appreciation for the series to some degree that I didn't expect to get after watching Romulus. Because I enjoyed Romulus. I know it's very much a best bits of each of like the original four, whatever. Bit of Alien, bit of Aliens, bit of Alien 3, very minor, bit of very just the start of the films, basically Alien 3, and then some interesting stuff with its references to Alien Resurrection. And despite my disliking of the film's use of quotes and stuff from the original first two films that are completely unnecessary to use outside of some things here and there, and maybe the questionable use of Ash and whatever, I still enjoyed the film. I thought it was a decent horror film. I enjoyed it for its update to the canon. Because I've been an Alien fan, I guess, for almost 20 years. Which doesn't sound like a long time for a lot of people, because the franchise has been around for 45 years. 45? Are we 46 in yet? 79, that was a while ago. 45 years. I've even got my Nostromo shirt. I need more Alien shirts. It's ridiculous. I grew up with these films from the age of 5 or 6 onwards. I usually credit it as when I was 6 years old, my dad showed me the first Alien film. We had the DVD set for the 4 films, and, classic, traumatized for life, that kind of stuff. Had nightmares for years. All that kind of stuff. You'd think I'd be someone who despises the franchise because of the trauma I've gotten from it, which you'd be thinking, fuck, he's talking about trauma now, I'm not going to watch this video. I'm getting there, don't worry. That's just, it's become something that I've been able to reimagine into how much I actually love about the series. And I'm not gaslighting myself or anything. It wasn't until, and I still avidly watched these films as a child. We watched all 4 of them and the AVP films when I was a kid. And I watched Prometheus when it came out in cinemas, because I was promised it wasn't an Alien film, and then the day we saw it, I found out it was an Alien film, and I was shit scared, because I still hadn't come to grips with my feelings towards the xenomorph and everything, so I was spending most of the time doing this. I was also a kid, so, was I, how old was I then? This is 2012. 14? So, I was a teenager by the time, 13, 14 by the time it had come out. And then Alien Covenant came out, and I still wasn't, every time there was a new film, it was like, oh god, anxiety, scared, whatever the crap. So, I was concerned. Same with Romulus. But I had a thing in my high school days where I had discovered, I think I was watching Aliens, it was on TV. I was still scared to look at photos of, like, the facehugger or anything. We had a booklet. The DVD for, I think, Alien vs. Predator is just, like, the inside of a facehugger. That's the DVD cover. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So, even that scared me as a kid. But then I rewatched Aliens in my teens, and something clicked. And I realized I wasn't as scared of the xenomorph anymore, because in that movie, they're canonized as bugs. They're fodder. They're just things you can shoot and they're dead. Because that's what was so scary about the first and even the third film, is that you can't kill the xenomorph unless maybe you use a flamethrower, and even that still didn't work for Ripley. You watch Romulus and you're like, oh my god, it still didn't fucking die. And that's why it terrified me as much, because you just couldn't kill it. And how do I kill something in my dreams if I don't know how to kill it in real life? So yeah, of course, you'd think I would have watched Aliens as a kid and I would have been able to be like, oh yeah, of course, just use guns. Yeah, I'm not a bright kid, don't worry about it. I didn't realize to my teens that, like, yeah, you just shoot them with a goddamn gun and they're dead. So that helped to allow me to, like, rewatch these films, to reevaluate them, to reappreciate them, because I was able to grow out of my fear of the xenomorph. I still think it's a terrifying creature, but I've come to really love it and respect it. I've got books about H.R. Giger's work. I've got all these books on the Alien films. I've got all these fucking figurines. I've got one that's like half my size. I think it's, 10 to 30 inches tall. I don't know. It's a recreation of one that they used to have back in the 80s. It's one of those NECA ones. So my love for the franchise is very avid in my collection of figurines and stuff. My memorabilia, all the Blu-rays and steelbooks and DVDs that I have, whatever. It's allowed me to also appreciate and find love in monster movies, which is great, So of course, yeah, even my fear of going into Romulus was still very clear when I was like been waiting months to watch it and still being scared shitless of the idea of going out and seeing it. Luckily, avoiding all the trailers. Basically all the trailers, except for like the first teaser and the first trailer. I had no idea what I was getting into. But after watching it and still being able to like watch it and appreciate it and use my appreciation of the universe and the way it's filmed and the look and the sounds and the production design, and then the way they utilize the facehuggers, and then the xenomorph and its new birthing thing, and like all these different elements, and I was starting to realize that I'm like, I'm appreciating this film a lot more for its addition to the canon than I am, you know, being scared of it. And that really helped. And again, that was my main takeaway from the film, was like what it used to kind of like fill in little gaps in between. You know, like how does the xenomorph go from a little chestburster to a giant 6-foot thing in a matter of minutes, or, you know, an hour or so? Well, there's this big phallic, but female phallic, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the word on YouTube, thing on the wall. And suddenly it was clicking for me that they're still going for that motif of sexualized imagery, because these films have always had sexualized imagery, very assault heavy, you know, and that's always been an undercurrent for the theme. It's always made the films unnerving to me. It even makes really any film that's about that kind of thing. God, I don't know how much of this I can actually say on YouTube without it being flagged or something, but anything that comes across in that kind of sexually specific way, that's, oh, this is an abuse of that power by people and whatever, makes me uncomfortable to watch. Also, kind of pregnancy scenes in most films. First Omen was a real blast for me. So I've had still repercussions from watching these films growing up. But again, Romulus did give me this reappreciation because I realized two factors. A, you can add stuff to the canon without it making it seem stupid or annoying. So I loved, again, the wall stuff, and so many different little elements of, oh, if you change the room temperature to adjust to a human's room temperature, a facehugger, because it's blind, can't see you. It knows you by sound and by body temperature. And I'm like, that's good. I like that as a nice addition to the franchise. And these could be specific to these exact ones, because these, again, on the third note, is that they've used the original xenomorph and deconstructed it to its bare DNA, which is the fucking black goo stuff from Prometheus, which was a fun way to tie that in, but also using it to recreate the xenomorph from the facehugger upwards. And I'm like, oh my god, they just did what David did in the course of 2 movies. Like, but off screen for this movie, so we could have more xenomorphs and facehuggers. That's why they look slightly different with the colorations and stuff. It's because they're just a modified version yet again. And I'm like, oh my god, it's one of those things where the prequel films had always been, in my mind, straight-laced canon prequel. They're going to set up and pay off an alien. All the stuff that you see in these, they're going to reach that alien thing. You're going to get to the ship on LV-426 and be like, that's the ship that is in maybe the third prequel film or whatever. And this is how they got all the eggs there and all this stuff. And maybe the answer to that is no. Maybe it's never going to head in that direction. Maybe the better factor is that the prequels evaluated Weyland-Yutani, well, actually just Weyland. It looked at androids. It looked at that world before Alien existed as a film, as in that universe. But it was also kind of, which I never really had realized until Romulus has come out, that it's a full circle thing. The idea that the alien existed eons ago. The engineers discovered them, or were attacked by them, whatever, were able to, use bioengineering to reverse engineer it back to the black goo, realize that can mutate things. They mutate themselves on Earth, causing the DNA that becomes humanity. Humanity creates androids. Androids discover the fucking, engineers and the black goo, and androids create the xenomorphs, and then the cycle repeats, and it's a looping thing. It's the exact same thing that was referenced in Jurassic Park of, the god creates dinosaurs die, whatever, god creates man creates dinosaur, well, man kills god, man creates dinosaurs. Like that, I'm not quoting that verbatim, but like that kind of mentality, and that's that's kind of where my love for this series is that, like, as much as each film has a different tone and a different aspect to it, like, again, you stretch back to the first Alien of it being an isolated, basically cabin in the woods film set in space. Love it. Aliens, what if it's war? It's Vietnam War, baby. Alien 3, just anxiety-inducing, religious, and just nihilistic as hell, and I love it. I really like Alien 3. To be fair, I like all the films, maybe aside from the AVP films, so we're not really going to touch on them. But, like, and I'm more of an assembly cut person when it comes to Alien 3 over the theatrical cut. But, you know, then you get to Resurrection, and Resurrection, stupid for it existing to begin with, is camp as fuck. And me being someone who loves campy horror films, that's campy horror films. You know, that French director, I love his film, so it's like, it really works in that essence of it just being stupid as hell. And it works, because it still has a horrifying element to it. It has this, you know, bioengineering, nightmarish fuel to it. And also Brad Dourif, beautiful. But, like, there are elements to it that I adore. Even the newborn at the end, it's so sympathetic, because look at those cute eyes, and then it's just the most nightmarish creature you've ever seen at the same time. It's really, really interesting. And then again, you get to the prequels, and I've come to really appreciate Prometheus. Sure, there is bad choices for character stuff, but at the same time, I don't really care. Like, I'm there for the beauty of it, for the way it moves me, for the emotions, for the mood, for David. Love David. There are some really great characters to some degree in it. You know, there is themes and topics discussed that I really like, and that's what I think it comes down to. It's not always about the characters. I know the Alien films are better known for their characters, especially Alien and Aliens, and even to some degree Alien 3. I'd even say to some degree Alien Resurrection, but yeah, I weren't strung too high about those characters. But, like, the first 3 films have really good characters, and sure, you get to these prequels and you realize, the characters aren't that smart for, you know, again, scientists and whatever, but then most of them are just archaeologists and stuff. All of them have, like, the individual role. You're the guy who does rocks. You're the biologist. You're the weapons guy. You know, you two are the archaeologists, one of whom is heavily religious, the other one is not, you know, and it becomes a good conflict of characters and stuff. Sure, they do stupid things, like, again, taking their helmets off when they shouldn't, but it's like, you know, sometimes that's just what happens when you don't know that literally anything can kill you. And that's where it becomes more amusing when you watch Covenant, which again has that idea but tenfold. And I rewatched Covenant, but also watched all the prologues, like Last Supper and whatever, all the stuff leading up to the film. I also watched the deleted scenes for those and Prometheus, and I don't think they really added much, but it was still interesting to watch. Some of it was even alternate takes, but it doesn't really matter. But it was definitely an interesting factor of watching the canon stuff, like Last Supper and all the prologue stuff that was released online, and even the one that's technically a sequel to Alien Covenant that suggests that David's going to make a queen out of Daniels. That made the film more interesting to me, but also, I really love the genetic mutations and stuff. I love the neomorph. I love the protomorph. It's technically not a xenomorph, it's considered by most to be a protomorph, but I like that the film is like, oh, we've got this, like, you know, we got this ship of people who are all couples and stuff, something that should have had, like, Last Supper included in the actual runtime of the film, because you really needed to set up the fact that they're all couples, and that's a huge part of the film, and they just don't really talk about it that much. But again, the Noah's Ark kind of thing. There's an emphasis to that stuff that I like, but once they get to the planet, it becomes, oh, this is basically Earth, but a bit darker and quieter. Their stupidity very much comes to fruition when, you know, there's these microorganisms, which I like how they emphasize it's actually tiny little bugs that, you know, get inside your ear or your nose and, you know, mutate your DNA to create a fucking life form, hence the neomorph. I really like that stuff because the film is inherently a mad scientist film, and I love that so much because it's basically what Resurrection does, but more minute and more experimental with its creatures and its designs and everything, and I really like that. You know, David's a fucking mad scientist. Oh, look, these people have come because of this beacon I sent out. They've come to my planet, and now I can use them for experimentation. And what's that? They have a bigger ship just hovering outside the planet's atmosphere that has thousands of more people that are in cryosleep, that sounds like a breeding ground, which is wonderful. So again, if they ever do a third one, I'm hella down. But, and again, it doesn't need to connect to Alien. I've realized that they don't need to. But that's the thing, because all the films are so different and unique. And again, people will hate and love different elements. There's always the argument of which one's better, of Alien and Aliens. For me personally, it's Alien, but I love Aliens just as much. Alien 3 is always the one of, you love it or hate it, but it's like, I really like it, especially the assembly cut, but I can understand why people hate it. I can understand why people hate Resurrection, but I'm also like, Resurrection's camp. There's no reason to hate it. It's just dumb schlock. It's enjoyable. It's popcorn fodder. You don't need to think that hard about it. With Prometheus and Covenant, I definitely understand why people hate it. I've known of those criticisms since they came out. I was on board with those criticisms. I hated Covenant when it first came out. And I've come to love it, So I've evolved my tastes with it. And the same kind of fits for Romulus, where it could have been something like the prequels or something vastly different. But instead, it is very much a homage to all the earlier films, which I kind of wanted to some degree. I think maybe because of Prometheus and Covenant, I had this mentality of, without realizing, like subconsciously realizing that I always kind of wanted a modern Alien film that had modern effects, not just CGI, but because that film was very heavy in its practical effects and whatever, but like kind of like a version of Alien mixed with Aliens. And then it also just touches on Alien 3 and it also touches on Alien 4. It's basically everything I've wanted, aside from maybe the use of Ash, which again, I'm up in the air about. I'm yet to confirm whether I love it or hate it, but I'm like, I'm okay with it. They didn't need to do that. They could have cast someone else. It doesn't matter. But them quoting lines from the older films, I'm not for. I hate that in the Terminator films. I hate that in the Predator films, and they're doing it now in the Alien films, and they never needed to ever do that. They never did it before. So that's my huge big pet peeve about the movie. But I appreciate its use of canonizing everything, wrapping it all together to some degree, like not hugely to a degree where you're going to get lost as a new viewer, but as someone who's loved the franchise for this long, it's interesting that this kind of still remains probably my favorite film franchise. Because there's so many that cause so many. Look, realistically, all film franchises cause some kind of controversy among fans. Whether you hate Predator 2 or Predators or even The Predator, which is very reasonable. That movie's bad. The Predator movies have their hits and misses. Though, to be fair, in my mind, I like them all except for the Predator. Same as like the Terminator has its hits and misses, and then you'd even go to something like Star Wars, hits and misses, and it's like, to me, if I can't enjoy all the films, I can't value it as highly. And for now, currently with the Alien films, at least the original 4, the 2 prequels, and Romulus, I've enjoyed all of them, and I have ways that I can enjoy them without them being bad, like I don't find disgust, I don't find hatred towards them, unlike the AVP films where the first one's a boring use of its concept and the second one is so grotesque I'm never going to watch it again. That as a child was not a fun fucking thing to watch. I should not have seen that. Not a good film, but it's just one of those franchises that for me, I've just found enjoyment in every single one of the films. And again, there's still things to dislike here and there, because nothing's perfect. Everything's so subjective and whatever, and that is art. Art is subjective. So I can understand people disliking this or that, or having mixed reactions on this or that. I'm not going to be the one arguing, actually, you're wrong, because I don't care. I have my love for this series. I enjoy my passion for this series. I enjoy when people like it or they dislike it, because I like discourse. It's interesting. I had friends who've watched the new one, some who have been, but some who have been like, actually, it's quite good, If you have an expectation of, I want to see a bunch of aliens killing people, hey, but also, if you want to see something completely new and fresh, not exactly there, but also kind of, but just like a new, reinvigorated take on what we've already seen, whilst adding tiny little pieces of canon that you hadn't, or I hadn't seen before. So, I really appreciated that. So yeah, that's basically why for me it's probably my favorite film franchise. Because to some degree, I could watch them all without being pissed off. And I know especially for people who watch the third Alien film and they're like, they killed off these characters at the start, what the fuck? And I still think that that's a stupid criticism, because it's like, look at the story of the film. Does it work for her character to have such a traumatizing event at the start? Does it fuel her? Does it change Ripley? How does it affect her? Is it good for her character journey and growth? And lo and behold, It is. It's a really effective use at the start of the film. Sure, the audience loves Hicks, they love Newt, and they killed off immediately, but hey, you know, the film was never going to be perfect for anyone, and sometimes you crack a few eggs, and hey, the omelet actually was pretty good in the end, even if those eggs were much cared for, I guess, question mark. So, I understand criticisms towards certain things, but it's like, if you had the same film of Alien 3 with Hicks and Newt, would the film work? And the answer is no. Them dying immediately works better for the narrative that you get. So, yeah. I don't know. It is what it is, and I love Alien Isolation. I'm a fan of some of the books as well, and some of the other games, so its expanded canon is still interesting to me, and I like reading about it on the occasion to kind of get more insight into certain details. Again, the novelization of Alien Covenant re-emphasizes the idea that David's not the creator of the xenomorph, despite the fact that the film is kind of trying to tell you that. Like, the film never specifically says that he is, but never specifically says that he isn't. It just shows that he was able to develop a creature that is the perfect organism, but that organism already existed, And that's what I find to be really interesting about the series, that it can just do that. It's like, what if these xenomorphs always existed? We just now, because of Prometheus, know what they exist maybe based off of, or at least what can maybe create them. Because that's, again, watching Prometheus and being like, well, if the xenomorph already existed on that mural, how could David create them? Well, what if they already existed? This is just, this goo thing here is just the bare bones. It's the basic DNA, because that's what the fucking film is about. The logo of the film, Prometheus, is on screen next to a big DNA chain. What if the movie was about DNA? Themes, motifs, who'd have thought it? I love these films. And I love how they still continue to scare me and continue to interest me. So, yeah, it's a whole thing for a lot of people. Whether you love them or hate them, or love certain ones or hate certain ones, it's what makes it interesting to me. So, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's my life and history of the Alien films. A series of films that have traumatized me since my youth and have also wildly influenced my love of cinema. Especially horror films, and anything that you can utilize in a film to make something so unique and different that you can't see in the real world. Like, the Xenomorphs is so unique to film. It's a surrealist play on like this pseudo-sexual, robotic, organic amalgamation. It's like watching a David Cronenberg film. And I really love that, so yeah. And then you watch the second one, you just shoot them with a gun, they're dead. It's great. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below on the Alien films, or what's your favorite film series or franchise. And yeah, that's all. Thanks for watching.